I'm Stephen Olemacher, and I'm the election decision editor for the Associated Press. I oversee our race calling operation on election night, and I work out of our Washington, D.C. bureau. The AP was founded in 1846, and 2 years later, in 1848, the AP tabulated the vote in the U.S. presidential election in which Zachary Taylor won. And the AP has been tabulating the results in every U.S. election ever since. We started off in the early days with our own version of the Pony Express, then moved on to using telegraphs to transmit results from the western part of the country back east, where most of the population lived at the time, to give them the results. Accuracy is our top priority, and everything else comes secondary to that. And there have been some historical cases of mistakes being made. In 1948, the very famous Harry Truman holding up the picture of the Chicago Tribune that says Dewey won the presidency. For those who don't remember Dewey, he never was president. In fact, Truman did win re-election there. That was one newspaper making a mistake, and it was a very famous mistake, and we really need to avoid that. Fast forward to 2000 in the Bush v. Gore race. So all of the networks declared Florida for Bush and declared him the next president. The AP did not. In fact, the AP, because we count the votes, the folks running the decision desk at that time understood that there were over 1 million votes left and the lead was not that big, in fact. And so it was a very tense situation. There was a lot of pressure to make a call, but the folks who were there standing firm, that proved to be the right thing to do. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to not make a call. As it turned out, that was one of the closest elections in American history. The recount that happened, resulting in a 5-4 Supreme Court ruling to stop the vote count in Florida, and George Bush did inevitably win that election. But that was far from certain on election night, and it was far from certain in the days and weeks following election day. So in 2020, it was really a triumph of our research and looking into how each state was going to process their ballots and what was going on in the world at the time. We had a pandemic happening, which really greatly increased the number of people who wanted to vote by mail because they were reluctant to go to a crowded polling place on election day. And so as we saw this big increase in mail voting through our reporting, we learned that many states weren't really equipped to handle the huge rush of votes, and that meant for a long vote count. That meant they couldn't necessarily process all those ballots on election day or before election day, and there would be a lot more ballots counted after election day. It's important to note that this is not new. The AP has been calling winners in races in states that take days and weeks to count all their votes for many, many years.
Such a vote, such a success.
Quite frankly, at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning after election, Donald Trump's lead over Joe Biden in Pennsylvania was almost 700,000 votes. However, we knew how many mail ballots had been cast, and we had a very strong indications on that they would be heavily in favor of Joe Biden. So we waited, and we watched that lead shrink and shrink and shrink until on Friday it flipped, and we waited until actually that the lead was outside the recount margin, and that happened at 11:26 a.m. on Saturday morning. And that's when we declared Joe Biden the winner of Pennsylvania and the next president.